Alrighty, looks like we are live and alive. We'll be starting this momentarily. Give me 1 second here. Move that up to there. Good enough. Yeah, so we're going to be doing a little bit of hybrid stuff here because I feel like streaming a little bit of Grounded. I haven't played any of the new content at all for a very long time. So I hear there's a new boss added and several other areas. So I figured we'd go in here and do some passive gameplay kind of messing around stuff while also doing working on the next target slash project I'm working on, which is Professor Jiang. And Professor Jiang is recently gotten a lot of attention from uh, alternative media, alternative intellectual sources as being somebody worthy of listening to and engaging with and all that kind of good nonsense stuff. And I'll be honest, I didn't see anything really uh, that warranted any goddamn attention. It was all relatively banal. I think he had his little video to where he predicted that Trump would attack Iran and whatever. It's just like this. I'm not sure if that's really like the most amazing of uh, predictions right there. Like it's not like it was bad or anything. It's not very that's not very amazing to me. Uh, and then I started hearing more and more bad stuff because initially I was like, it just sounds like a whatever, a random dude getting popular alternative media because he isn't necessarily part of the establishment of academia, and that those figures always get really popular. It's something to look into, but nothing too fancy. But then I started getting more and more, seeing more and more clips, and it started looking more and more like somebody we have a new massive, crazy, fucking weird guru on our hands. Another new Jordan Peterson esque kind of thing. But the more I looked into it, the more I was like, wow, this is actually even worse than Jordan Peterson. This is genuinely mind numbingly like this is Deepak Chakra levels, if honestly even worse than Deepak Chakra levels of nonsensical stuff. I was seeing clips in here. So I decided, all right, I wanted to look at where I think his strengths should probably be represented. So I know he's got a bachelor's in English. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and right now tell you, I'm a little bit suspicious of that. Not necessarily that he has one. I'm sure he has one. It's just I am very self conscious about calling myself Professor Empty Keyboard or Professor anything. And I told my students this that when I was teaching at a college and university, both, that when you're calling me this, technically I'm not a professor. The only reason I'm having you call me this is one, for basic formality, kind of lesson learning, because you don't know who's going to be teaching you, and you want to make sure you are always being maximally polite. And some professors, some teachers won't really care if you don't call them professor or doctor. Some teachers will. So in general, I encourage them to be on the safe side, to just, call them the highest title that you can and work yourself around there. It's always best to be as formal as possible. But again, the secondary reason is that there's not a really good title or not a really good precedent of what is and is not a professor, because professorship usually has several components in there. A terminal degree, typically a PhD, but not always a PhD, because some degree paths quite literally end in a master's, like a master's in fine arts. I don't think there's as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's a PhD in fine arts anywhere. So you literally can't get a PhD in fine arts. It's just that's just kind of it. Um, the next thing is you need to also be full time, usually teaching full time or full time researcher or a mixture of full time of research and you know teaching. It you need to be full time, and a lot of people, a lot of teachers are some degree of adjunct faculty. Even with PhDs and whatnot, they don't necessarily teach full time. Um, so, and there's varying differences between an associate professor, assistant professor. It's nonsensical, or it's not really super important. I've never cared about the titles. I simply said this is the easiest one for you to call me is professor, because you don't want to do Mister, because I always felt like Mister feels way too high school and is kind of like, look, you got to grow up. You're going to be calling people titles, not Mister. It felt way too high school to me. I don't know how else to explain it. As a personal thing, but on the professional thing, again, the respect, the title recognition needs to be there. So I think we were doing this one. This is the larger one that has lots going on with it. So we're gonna start with this one, and I think we were in the middle of building a base last I played. I started this up like a couple hours ago and walked around for like 5 minutes ago. All right, I think I know what I'm doing and where I am, and I have a general idea. But anyway, we're gonna watch one of his English lectures, which I would imagine the biggest thing that I saw in the clips that I knew was going to be a problem with Professor Jiang is he's one of those people who likes to. It seems to be he is presenting this idea of intelligence is this you bring is that you have this ability to holistically talk about all manner of topics all the time, and everything is always happening to interconnected. And what I mean by that is that, you know, he will go from lecturing about or talking about just honestly fucking anything. But in this case, like just something like I was trying to think of something he's talking about. He'll talk about like, okay, geopolitics, and then he'll start talking about quantum mechanics, as if quantum mechanics has anything to do with geopolitics. And it's just like, it does. Like, what do you mean? And he would usually only ever talk about them in the most vaguest of senses. So it's one of those things where I was immediately suspicious of this, based purely on that part, because it's like, look, that's fucking weird. It was just really, really weird. I was in the middle of building a base, so let's call the ant. So that's kind of one of my first instincts of, is this person going to be a guru nonsense speaker? Are they able to just focus on one singular topic and speak about it in full, in depth, and only bringing up related kind of things? Or are they kind of constantly be alternating between varying topics, speaking basically as wide as an ocean, as deep as a puddle kind of commentary? Because I find that true intelligence, or true, especially true teaching, because again, these are all supposed to be his classes that he's teaching. The thing I'm going to watch is supposed to be a recorded lecture, which I have my other issue with, is regarding the deception on this one. Because again, I'm feeling again more weird fucking bullshit in that manner. That reminds me of Warren Smith, but no, don't want to spoil that. But the thing I was thinking of is, again, when you're teaching a class, you have to realize that every single concept that you're bringing up there is probably the first time they're dealing with it. So you kind of need to scaffolding, they would call it. You need to practice a bit of self-discipline. And even though I might want to talk about the way advanced stuff, like I don't want to talk about this basic material that I have read dozens of times at this point. I want to talk about the fun, cool stuff. But if I'm not going to be an asshole, like, I need to recognize that they they won't get anything from that. They don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know the history. It's many ways. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but I think an analogy that might explain it is it's kind of like an inside joke amongst friends, and realizing that for somebody new to the friend group who's just walking in there, they're not going to get or understand what you guys are babbling about. When all of a sudden you're like, yeah, and the tea was mildly cold, and then everyone starts laughing, and they're going to be looking at you like, what the fuck does that mean, tea was mildly cold? And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right, you weren't there for that. There was this meeting, and you realize, oh, shit, now I have to explain. Like, and especially it gets really difficult and kind of annoying when you're dealing with something that is, like, several layers of irony deep. So this was another thing that immediately was kind of a warning sign of bad juju. Basically, it's an immediate warning sign for me that I'm going to be hearing some serious pseudo-intellectual bullshit and woohoo nonsensical crap from this person. Now, didn't want to hold. I don't want to 100% say that is what it's going to be, because I haven't watched this video. But I know what I did see made me very, very suspicious as in regards to his other videos. And you know, we could probably have a little bit of volume here from the. I'm hoping you guys. I don't know how much you guys can actually hear, but oh, is there? I feel like there's got to be another stick around here somewhere. Let me see if I can get a teeny bit of volume here. Okay, yeah, I hear a little bit. I don't know if you guys are hearing too much out there, but I'm hearing a bit. Enough for me to continue. But yeah, so enough of the preamble. We're going to go ahead and start Dr. Jiang's thing here.
So together we've read the first half of the Iliad. And today I gave you an assignment, right? So I have 3 questions for you guys about Achilles. The first question is, imagine yourself.
All right, so small little thing. This is purely, this is not necessarily a critique. This is merely a stylistic thing. Is you know, this is supposed to be okay, the first part of the Iliad, first you know, it's the first books or whatever. Again, my memory of the Iliad is not amazing on this one, so I'm not sure. There might be errors or there might be good stuff that he does that I miss, so please excuse me for that. But I always find, like, if you're going to do one lecture, I guess this is going to be a 30-minute lecture, even in such short time constraints, you kind of have to decide whether you're going to go broad or specific here. Either way, if you're going to go broad or specific, the first couple of sentences out of your mouth, or the first things you should be setting up, is especially for newer readers, younger readers, because I believe he teaches at a high school, is just kind of a general reminder or a general summary. What is the basic plot archetype? Like that would be usually my first questions. Is we start the broadest, the simplest, the most the most cohesive questions. What are we dealing with? What is this story about, just in the most basic of details? What are some of our primary characters? Now, this might start by like, oh, you're starting out way too simple, but again, even for complicated things, it's always important to kind of have that said, put people in the mindset of, okay, we're talking about this. Get kind of like a warm-up routine. Sure, this is the warm-up is not designed to work your muscles stringently. The warm-up is designed to warm you up. But
As Achilles, how are you similar? What experience in your life is very similar to that of Achilles? And you said that Achilles is almost a mirror to you, where you love playing soccer, but one day you felt humiliated, so you stopped playing soccer, and that tore at your heart. Okay, and your phrase was pride and vulnerability. And that shows that by reading the Iliad, it gives you tremendous insight into yourself as well as the nature of the human heart, where arrogance and insecurity are two sides of the same coin, right? They're bundled together.
okay, hold on. This is a weird cat. This is nothing. He has such a weird. Every single thing he talks about always goes into this weird mysticism, this semi-personal, but the personal is like your personal feelings is somehow this global phenomena thing. Like,
The first question is, imagine yourself as Achilles.
I'm just trying to figure out why the question is like imagine yourself as Achilles, but I could kind of see that's like put yourself in Achilles' position. How do you feel? Why would you feel this way?
How are you similar? What experience in your life is very similar to that of Achilles? And you said that.
What experience? I'm just trying to like reverse engineer what this was. Like if this was a prompt of like, have you ever had experiences similar to what Achilles had? But that's just a terrible way of like it is a terrible way of kind of phrasing like I suppose you could maybe phrase it something like Achilles experiences a great deal of frustration and embarrassment about XYZ. Is there a moment in your life where you've done this? But it feels like he's saying this like more like he just asked a general question. The way he's phrasing it, it feels like he asked a general question of, how do you guys relate to Achilles? And they came up with this idea of that, which I'm a little doubtful that happened. Like, students don't really do that.
that um, Achilles is almost a mirror to you, where you love playing soccer, but one day you felt humiliated, so you stopped playing soccer, and that tore at your heart. Okay, and your phrase was pride and vulnerability, and that shows that by reading the Iliad, it gives you tremendous insight into yourself as well as the nature of the human heart, where arrogance and insecurity.
Again, with the way he goes about this, like, again, here's my second critique, is the reason why he's able to go this fast and he's able to kind of skip over dozens, these connections or these leaps in logic of how this reflects you and it is a mirror to yourself, and this shows why, what, like, and with no student feedback or no questions, no engagement with this, is because and this is the performative aspect that I swear to God, all of these guru motherfuckers that I've been seeing do so goddamn much. He is not teaching to a class with students in it right now. This motherfucker is in an empty room. Now, maybe he's teaching to, again, he's doing these as like online lectures. But if they're online lectures, again, I urge you, go find those. You can find them on YouTube. You probably can find dozens and dozens, hundreds of lectures on biology or on books or stuff like that, anything like that. And books, just to make it match up to this kind of specific topic. From professors that you can look up and go, yeah, this person's a professor at Yale, they're doing this. Or even like, you can sometimes find like classroom recordings of lectures from people talking about like Moby Dick or the Iliad or something like that. Listen to how they speak, how they develop an idea, and listen to him. And I think you'll kind of get this idea of how he is. It feels like when they talk like this, it feels like the student who has no idea what they're talking about, but has an end product. Like they have an idea, they want to end here. They're doing this presentation, they want to end at this point. But they never really got a solid understanding of how to get there and how this would work. So they want to say this thing, but they don't really, like, they're not confident enough, and they don't really know how to say it and how to get it across. So they're just struggling, and they just kind of babble out in between stuff. Because again, let's just break it down here.
You stopped playing soccer, and that tore at your heart. Okay, and your phrase was pride and vulnerability.
Again, I don't think any student ever said that, pride and vulnerability, but it's possible. All right, so they see Achilles reflected in how they sometimes felt pride and vulnerability in regards to the things they were prideful of. Okay.
And that shows that by reading the Iliad, it gives you tremendous insight into yourself as
that shows that reading the Iliad, no, it does not show that reading the Iliad. What it does is it shows that reading might give insight onto your own personal feelings. But even then, that's such an odd way to phrase that, because it's not so much that the Iliad reading, like, like, why are you trying to hype this up? Like, it feels like you're trying to sell Iliad stocks. Why? Well, maybe the students won't care or whatever. So like, yeah, well then they don't care. But the thing that I'm missing here, or the thing that I am wondering about, where is a half wall? Is there a half wall? These are all terrible, but all right. I don't know. Like, it just, something about this really, really sets off my warning lights. Because everything about it just feels weird. Like, why is he phrasing it in this manner? It's just such an odd way to phrase his discussion. Actually, hold on, we don't. It's just such an odd way to phrase things that I'm immediately suspicious. And it's not a good thing to be suspicious immediately. It's a little bit unfair. I'm willing to admit that. But it just, everything about this, just feels wrong. it feels like it it feels like what somebody's idea of a classroom lecture is. I wish you weren't here. Fucking up my shit here. Yeah, it's just such a that is really, really suspicious kind of language. All right, let's see.
Well as the nature of the human heart, where arrogance and insecurity are two sides of the same coin, right? They're bundled together. Okay. Another question is: imagine Achilles' childhood, and you said that Achilles, when he was young, he was probably very rebellious, very imaginative, and that's true. Okay, he's always testing boundaries. He has a very vivid imagination. And the last question is, imagine Achilles today. What?
Again, it's just such a... That's a weird summary of that, because, again, I'm freely going to admit that I'm not super up to date on the Iliad. But, like, he is sort of rebellious, but also it needs to be couched in an understanding that he is rebellious by the standards of Greek mythology. And while you might say, well, of course, blah, 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 it's a Greek story, it's like, yeah, no, but this needs to be said. Because it is not our society. It's not our way of living, a way of thinking. And quite frankly, they thought and worked very, very differently than the way that we do. So the ideas of what is and is not rebellious are going to be pretty substantially different. And that those differences are not negligible to any degree. They are very, very important differences. All right, let's close that up. We went in there. We were supposed to go somewhere. But also, it's just... I get another thing to where it feels like he is not just selling something, but that he is hyping it up in a way that feels like a infomercial, selling a self-help guru book, right?
Another question is: imagine Achilles' childhood, and you said that Achilles, when he was young, he was probably very rebellious, very imaginative. And that's
again, imaginative. What student would say that? Like, I'm trying to think of the Iliad, and why would you think imaginative? I could see rebellious, fights against the rules, challenges them, has a great deal of arrogance. Was the jock? Was a strong? Was a strong child, a strong thing. But why imaginative? And I think this fits in to a thing that I noticed, and that's probably going to crop up here, is that Dr. Jiang, I'm not going to call him professor or doctor because he's neither, but Jiang really traffics in the standard guru thing of the indomitable mystical power of will and self and the individual. Because this is massive amongst kind of the guru adjacent things, is that they basically tell you that you, as just by virtue of being human, have such this powerful intellectual mind already situated in you that you don't need school, you don't need anything. What you just simply need is the right attitude, the right outlook, the right guidance from gurus or whatever, and the right book to tell you, but not necessarily education. Like you are at once both perfect as you are, but imperfect. But the imperfection, like you, the way to fix yourself is just be more of yourself, and to not take orders or listen to other people telling you what to do. And it feels like this is kind of bleeding into his analysis of, again, Achilles, because again, I know I'm simply at this point, unless proven otherwise, I'm simply going to say this is performative, that he is pretending like he has a class. So he's doing this like a performance art piece, and he is trying to imagine what students would have said regarding this. So then he's just filling in the blanks. So none of this, anytime he says like, you guys said this, or you guys responded to this, I'm just going to wholesale discount it and just say this is just him performing. That doesn't mean that I'm going to discount it as not substantive or whatever. But you, it is rather telling.
That's true. Okay, he's always testing boundaries. He has a very vivid imagination. And the last question is
The vivid, again, it is kind of there, but like this is such a strange. I know it's only we're only 2 minutes in, but I try to especially for 30 minutes, I try to maximize every single thing in my lectures to make them have the ability and utility to take the skill and apply it outside of just this thing. So I'm not going to, I tended to not spend too much time blathering on about the book and like the characters, unless it was very, very specifically tied to, you find this character identity or this characteristic through this process, this method, this idea, this way of approach. How did we find this is more important than what you found. And again, this is why I often would tell students that it doesn't really matter what I have you read. I could have you read the Iliad. I could have you read Toni Morris's Nobel lecture. I could have you read Learning to Read and Write by Frederick Douglass. I could have you read The Machine Stops by fucking Forster. I could have you read all manner of things. I could have you read Pulp Fiction. I could have you read comic books. It doesn't matter. I could have you read news sources. What matters is what you do, the process. The substance of the thing gives you unique, interesting insights into that genre, that style of writing, that particular ideology, sure. But my job is not to teach necessarily that ideology. Now, this seems to be maybe like a great books kind of thing, but even so, like, he doesn't seem to be telling them the ideology or working towards an understanding of Greek writing genre. And it's just kind of this, it just feels weird. It feels very specific and lacking of substance.
Imagine Achilles today. What would he be doing? Okay, and here the answer is very interesting. The answer is that he's probably trying to be an Olympian athlete. Okay, so the obvious answer would be he's trying to be a soldier because he loves war. But what you recognize is that no, what Achilles really wants is to stand out and be admired by everyone. He wants to be famous. And so it makes more sense to be an Olympian athlete than it does to be a soldier.
So no, he's not wrong about this. Again, like Achilles' desire to be noted and known and famous, like what would he be? And saying like, oh, he would want to be a soldier or an Olympian, and now he's saying like, oh, he'd rather be an Olympian than a soldier because you don't really know soldiers. One, not necessarily. Like, he wants to be known and admired, but it is likely he could want to be a soldier. He would just be the most noted and famous soldier. He could be an Olympian, but the biggest thing is that if you wanted to emphasize purely just like the psychology of the need for validation and the pride and the vulnerability that comes from that and the need for that external validation, like it seems odd that you would say, oh, he's going to be an Olympian athlete. It's like, well, he'd probably be like an influencer. He'd probably want to be like he might have some, again, some physical prowess, whatever thing like that, but he would not, if that's the thing, he would be drawn to whatever can gain him the most glory. And being an Olympian athlete does not give him glory. Like maybe being a basketball player or something like that. It feels like an odd analogy, which again, I'm not going to knock him for having a bad analogy or a bad example here, but it just kind of adds to the further weirdness that I find, the unsettling leaps in logic that are oftentimes completely unfounded, that he just blurts out. He just blurts out these random things, and it's just like this. I don't know how you're making that leap, buddy.
But you also recognize that being an Olympic athlete has a lot of restrictions because you need coaches, you need sponsors, you need to follow a certain regiment. And Achilles is a very independent-minded person. And so he would rebel against all this authority, all the structure, all this conformity. And so he would probably fail in today's society. Okay? So the entire point of this exercise.
Again, no. Like, it's just a wild thing to say that he would just say that, like, he would fail in society. It's like, I'm not convinced at all that you've given any indication, because again, there are many characteristics of Achilles. Again, him being a soldier, he had to have learned how to be a soldier. He had to have, again, learned how to be a member of that society in himself. So this idea that he could not succeed or wouldn't succeed because he couldn't, because he's just so independent, so he's so genius, and he couldn't conform to society's expectations for, taking lessons and rules, is just that's an odd leap. That's a really weird leap. Like, especially seeing how, especially in our society that is so obsessive with individuality oftentimes, and uniqueness, and we venerate the geniuses so much so that honestly they don't even need to be genius. They just need to market themselves as such. Like Elon Musk is not particularly good or smart about a lot of things. He just isn't. He's not a dumb guy, he's just not particularly amazing at them, but he markets himself as a genius, and that has made him incredibly wealthy because he's been successful doing that. Like, this is kind of a wild claim to just throw out.
All this conformity, and so
and this conformity, again, I'm getting more of this. Society is trying to tell you how to think, how to do things, but you are masters of yourselves, and the conformity is bad. I'm getting, again, he cannot talk about subjects that do not, and the problem is that he bends every single subject to whatever his particular ideology. He only ever talks about or emphasizes the aspects of a work, of fiction, or a idea or concept that agree with him. But that's just terrible teaching, because you teach all of it. The stuff that agrees with your personal opinions, the stuff that doesn't agree with it. You teach it in the context of the literature, neither supportive nor against it. It's weird.
Probably fail in today's society. Okay? So the entire point of this exercise is to show you that what a great book does is excite your imagination. It helps your imagination peer deeply into your own human heart and see how complicated, how complex, how dark it is. It also allows you to imagine Achilles as a whole person. You don't know him, you've never met Achilles, and Achilles is honestly a fictional character. He never existed, but he's real to you, so that you're able to imagine his past, his childhood, and you're able to experience what he experienced. And what's even more powerful is that you're able to imagine Achilles into our world and see him as a living and breathing human being. So that's what a great book is.
Whoa. What a win. Wow. Again, it's weird because there's like 10 or 15% of the stuff that is not. Hold on. Oh, god damn it. Where the fuck did you come from? Seriously, where the fuck did that guy come from? God damn it. I guess, why am I...
My buggy still needs help. Well, there goes my buggy. It's gonna have to rest up for a while.
Okay, this darkness thing is pissing me off. Like, it's not dark. Just, I can't fucking see anything. Because it's dark, but then it's not dark. Fuck it. I'm just gonna sleep. I hate the day-night cycle in this fucking game. I swear to God, every time I move, no matter what, it is always fucking dark. God, I literally moved like 10 feet and I insta died. I hate it. But seriously, what the fuck was that goddamn fucking ambush bullshit? Alright, well, can't sleep. Whatever.
Complex, how your own imagination is that the entire point of this exercise is to show you that what a great book does is excite your imagination.
How did that do that? Like, you asked questions of them, or they, like, how are you honestly expecting me to believe that they came up with these questions on their own and these insights? I'm not seeing that. Again, this isn't a knock against students, it's just not how they do stuff. So again, hold on, we're gonna go feed the dogs real quick. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Let me put up the text box somewhere. There we are. Okay, we're back. Sorry. Had to feed the dogs, and then I had to fill up the water bowl, and then I had to do a bunch of other things. Anyway. So, again, it's warning flag after warning flag here to where, again, he's trying to make this weird... It feels like he's trying to make books sound like this magical thing that can reach across time and space and do this. And that's like, okay, I get that. I get that kind of mysticism talk here, but...
That what a great book does is excite your imagination.
Again, it excites your imagination. That's what a great book does.
It helps your imagination peer deeply into your own human heart.
Into your own human heart. One, I just fucking hate the phrasing that into your own human heart. What other fucking heart is there? I don't know. It just it sounds neat to say, but it has no meaning what he's saying. We're gonna go ahead and actually unpause here. Because I need time. But it's just this strange thing. And I'm trying to, again, it's not 100% incorrect, but there is something weird about how he is constantly saying this dialogue that is just this weirdly narcissistic way of looking at the world where everything is about you. Now, again, I would say it's not insane to say great literature speaks to you from across the centuries, or that's one of the things that, you can make that argument that one of the things that makes great literature great is that it is timeless, is that it deals with topics and ideas that are eternal. Okay, I could see that. I could understand that. But my issue is going to be
Filling up the tank.
Oh, God damn it. Is that the way he's going about discussing this is such a... Rather than talking about the book or the nature of literature, in a sense, he's doing this odd... I don't know, I'm trying to find a way to explain it, because it's just such an odd... The only thing I can think of is guru speak, is that he's literally just... It's just guru speak. And it's not... Doesn't really have substance to it.
And see how complicated, how complex, how dark it is.
Like, again, it's like he's using this, like, okay, great literature is about a reflection into you, and how you can tell it is that it makes you think about yourself and it shows you the truth. I think that's what it is. Is there's kind of this weird absolutist thing, is that it shows you the truth about reality that is kept from you by the world and by the things that would distract you from this. So this is why this literature is good and the other literature is not good, is because this literature
Yo, over here.
there he is.
8 legs.
That this literature is like designed to speak to you, to make you understand the world, blah, 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 blah. There he is. Okay, apparently there is just a... Oh, there's many of them. Why are there so many? Why are there so many? Why don't I run fast? Shit. We're fucking dead. God damn it, why are there so many fucking goddamn scorpions here? Seriously. What the fuck is going on? Why are there so many fucking cocksucking son of a bitch scorpions here? There's 2 of these northern fucking bitches. God damn it, we're gonna get fucking tagged again. Like, why are there so many fucking scorpions here?
Am I forgetting something? Ah! I'll patch you up.
God damn.
Oh no, Buggy's getting hurt bad.
Again, there's no reason to block because they have infinite fucking damage. And I swear to God, I think they changed the auto-aim on this. Where's the... Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. Oh, what the fuck was that hitbox? No, not the nearest outpost. God damn it. Well, whatever. It works.
Yo, over here.
Are you resistant to cold or something? I think he is. God damn. What a fucking annoyance. I don't think there's anything left in there. Alright, well, can I just go to sleep for fuck's sake and get a goddamn save going here? I have no food. It's all very annoying because I didn't really plan this out so well, but also I didn't really expect... Let's just go to sleep and wait until it's goddamn daytime, because it's never goddamn daytime. Anyway, let's continue watching this. I really do not like his insistence on being this weird self-help dialogue stuff. It's really weird.
It also allows you to imagine Achilles as a whole person. You don't know him. You've never met Achilles, and Achilles is honestly a fictional character. He never existed, but he's real to you so that you're able to imagine his past, his childhood, and you're able to experience what he experienced. And what's even more powerful is that you're able to imagine Achilles into our world and see him as a living and breathing human being. So that's what a great book is. A great book is composed of characters that are real to you and make the world more real to you. They excite your imagination, that allows you to think much more deeply into yourself, as well as more imaginatively understand the world around you. Okay? So now the question then is, How does this happen?
I
What are the
guess.
mechanisms behind all this? Okay, so there was a very famous American literary critic named Harold Bloom. He was at Yale. He actually taught at Yale when I was there. I studied English literature at Yale, and I actually sat in on a class of his. Okay, but he is considered the most famous American literary critic. And his explanation for what a great book is. What is a great book? A great book is something that helps us become human.
All right. So, okay. So he's following the kind of Bloom thing. Um, I'm not sure it allows us. I'm not sure if Bloom ever said to become human. It's more like great literature enhances, reveals, or allows us to understand our humanity to a better degree. But I'm not like I would. Again, this idea of becoming human. Again, it fits into this weird thing to where, like, you are a human being and everyone else is a bot or a non-human. And this is why I'm really, I know it's a small phrasing thing, but he keeps doing this. I've seen shorts of him and he keeps doing this shit, and he seems to really pedal into this kind of this really bad self-help guru style of sorry, turning on the light, of putting of this hyper individualistic kind of uh treatment of the world and society. And also, again, this appeal to, like, okay, Hero, he's one of the greatest. Like, yes, he's famous, but in academia we don't really use the word greatest, because greatness again applies into this. The great man theory of history is one version of this idea of greatness that is, quite frankly, bunk. It's bullshit. Every single study of it from a analytical, scientific, historical kind of perspective usually kind of states that the great man theory, like, only this guy could ever have done this. This was something so unique or whatever, is just fundamentally, philosophically, ideologically kind of wrong. It's not that these people weren't smart or weren't unique or weren't interesting. It's just the great man theory and perspective of both history and just anything analysis is deeply flawed in that it tries to substitute a almost genetic fallacy in the opposite direction, in the sense that these ideas or this thing must be good because it came from somebody who was so smart, so it must be smart itself. It's the opposite of, like, the genetic fallacy of this idea is bad because it came from this person. It's the inversion of that, is that this idea must be good because it came from a good person. Um, so it runs into major issues like that. And again, this kind of appeal, like, oh, Harold Bloom, like, again, maybe it's my style of teaching, but my style of teaching, like, if I bring stuff out like this, okay, so what are some theories when it comes to why or how, what makes a great book? One, I would have started at that point. I was started at the theoretical point. It's like, so one theory or one perspective on what makes a great book, um, rather than simply a popular book, is presented by Harold Bloom. Harold Bloom was a critic for many years and pretty famous one, and he presented this idea of a great book is great because it allows us to understand or engages with human qualities that are eternal, qualities like fairness, love, justice, identity, sense of self, blah 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 blah. So my question is that I would also include in there at least one other or two other comparative, or like, what are some other forms of great book, other definitions of great books. If you want to stick with one great book because this fits into the kind of Greek idea of the heroes, the villains, this individual, you know this kind of perspective, okay, maybe stick with Harold Bloom, but you should bring up others. I'm not sure if he will.
So, and what he means by that is, in a great book, the characters are different because the characters are able to hear themselves speak. Okay? Hear yourself speak. Okay?
What? Hold on.
The characters are different because the characters are able to hear themselves speak.
What? How? I'm not quite sure what he's trying to say there. Like, that's so banal. I'm not even sure what he's trying to say. Like, is he referencing Bloom's like ideas about like the internal dialogue and the self-referential or the self-consciousness that great books have, and that they then impart onto another person? Maybe okay, but that's such a weird, like, they hear themselves speak. That doesn't inform the student. The students are like this, okay, they hear themselves speak. Like, if I were to ask a student that, or say that to a student, like, they wouldn't, like, they would only take that like, I guess, like, they can hear their own thoughts. It's like, yeah, well, yes, kind of, but it's like I would have to do a lot of work to take that insanely simplistic, nonsensical statement and make it not nonsensical.
Okay? Hear yourself speak. Okay? Those are his words. What does it mean to hear yourself speak? It means that as I'm speaking to you, there's also a part of me that steps back and analyzes what I say. Okay? It has to make sense to me, it has to make sense to you. And we call this consciousness. Okay? To be human means to be conscious. But to be conscious is ultimately an act of imagination.
Okay, just like
Consciousness. It has to make sense to you. And we call this consciousness.
okay, all right. So the self-consciousness, okay, he's kind of bringing back around, sort of, but then there's a bunch of random shit he threw in there.
Okay? To be human means to be conscious.
Not really. Like, even according to Harold Bloom, like, not really. Like, that would be, to be human would be to have a human consciousness, is to be aware of your humanness, of that. Like, again, I'm nitpicking on that one a little bit.
But to be conscious is ultimately an act of imagination. Because while you're speaking, you have to step back. Okay? We actually call this disassociation.
He loves using this weird, this pseudo psychology terminology. Okay, we call this disassociation. Not like, disassociation is a pretty heavily laden word there. So when he's bringing that up, that's immediate. Like, there's a lot more implied with what you're saying there than, like, I would not describe this as disassociation. And self-consciousness is what we're talking about here. You're not necessarily disassociating yourself, because disassociation implies you are no longer associating with yourself. If you are feeling yourself or aware of yourself, you are not disassociated. You are associated with this. Like, that, it's not implied. Just being aware of yourself and conscious of yourself does not immediately imply that you have somehow stepped outside of yourself. Not really. I would very much challenge that.
You have to disassociate, meaning basically that as you are speaking, as you are in this world, a part of you, almost like a ghost, steps away and observes the entire scene.
Again, that's just simply, again, trying to use disassociation here is really deceptive, because that's not disassociation. That is awareness, that is external awareness, that is, and in fact, again, because you are only aware of this external thing because you are so deep in yourself and you're paranoid of how others are thinking. You are imagining the imaginative framework is not necessarily of yourself, it's actually of other things, because you're trying to imagine how people are seeing you and being aware of you. So the social awareness is what's happening here. I am very well,
and not only am I imagining myself speaking, but I'm also imagining what is happening inside your mind, your heart, as I'm speaking. My effect on you. Am I imagining myself speaking, but
like, is he talking about like before a speaking event, before a communicative action? Like, I'm imagining how this conversation will go, like, kind of, but again, like, that's just, it just feels really sloppy.
I'm also imagining what is happening inside your mind, your heart, as I'm speaking. My effect on you, okay? Right? So
Why is he differentiating between mind and heart there?
let's look at how this applies to the Iliad. Okay, so in the first book of the Iliad, Agamemnon.
Okay, again, I'm just really, really not feeling his kind of the way he's describing this. Like, there's something really wrong with how he's doing this. God damn it. Hold on. Get over here. Get over here.
You in a bit.
A lot of orb weaver eggs here. Sorry. All right, let's see what he has to say about the Iliad.
And Achilles, they are having an argument. They're having an argument because Agamemnon kidnapped a girl. The father demanded to ransom her back. Agamemnon broke the rules of war, of piracy, and said, "No, I like her. Screw you. I'm the king of kings. I'll do whatever I want." The father is a priest of Apollo. Apollo starts a plague among the Greek soldiers. They're all dying. And Achilles says to Agamemnon and says, "We're all dying on the shores of Troy. So you have to give the girl back." And Agamemnon says, "Sure, I'll give her back, but now I want your girl in return." Okay? And this starts the main conflict of the Iliad. What's interesting is that how conscious they are, okay? So what's happening is that this is a war council. And in a war council, the Greek generals get together and decide on policy. And so as Agamemnon is speaking, okay, if you observe his speech, he's doing three things at once. Okay? The first and most important thing is that he's responding to Achilles, right? Achilles says, you have to give the girl back. And Agamemnon says, fine, I'll give the girl back, but in return, I want your girl. So that's a response to Achilles. He feels as though Achilles made him lose face, so now he wants to make Achilles lose face as well. Okay? But also, what's important is that Agamemnon is considering how others are perceiving the interaction, right? What does Agamemnon require or demand Achilles' girlfriend? Because Agamemnon does not want to lose face amongst the others, okay? So he recognizes that if he just says to Achilles, you know what, Achilles?
Again, this is that's a weird fucking mini lesson here. It's not terrible, like, okay, he's trying to think about, okay, the nature of, like, I don't know why he brought in consciousness, because that's like, we're not talking about consciousness in a really philosophical sense, like what is and is not consciousness. We're talking about social consciousness. We're talking about social cues, social behaviors, and an awareness of self in that social setting and how you are perceived, or the imagination of that. I can kind of get behind that, but why he's trying to tie this to this larger, like his attempt to tie it to Harold Bloom and thinking of yourself, like, this was incredibly lazy. This felt like an undergrad, like, here's how I'm trying to tie this grand philosophical question into this incredibly not particularly philosophical kind of, like, you're just smashing things together because it sounds interesting, but it's not.
You're
really...
right. He would lose face amongst the other generals. He would lose respect. And in this world, if no one respects you, you could get killed, okay? These people are gangsters. So he recognizes that in order to save face, I must now demand something from Achilles to show that I am his superior. Okay, he's so conscious of that as well. But also, at the same time, he's going to step back, okay? And he's going to be conscious of his own words to make sure that his words together make sense. That for him, it is coherent, okay? And so what he says to Achilles is, why am I doing this? Because I love my girlfriend, okay? You stole from me who I love, and therefore I must enact a vengeance on you.
Okay, yeah, it seems to somewhat match my thing. Like, it's a weird. It's weird that people are listening to this, or might listen to this, and think that this is super insightful. Like, it's not bad, it's not terrible. It's just, I don't know, the initial setup and his framing of this, and how he's trying to throw in these random little really smart sounding kind of things, like, oh, it's about consciousness and Harold Bloom, like, all that just put a really sour taste in my mouth. Like, okay, yeah.
Okay, so you see how coherent all this. He is saying to Achilles, to ensure that you understand that I'm your superior, I'm going to take what you most prize.
Coherent,
and
why is that word?
Then he's thinking about the reaction of the war council to make sure that they understand that he's still the top boss. But he's also, in his head, ensuring that what he says is coherent in itself, okay? That what he's doing has a rationale. Now, rationale is because I loved her. Because you're stealing from me my greatest love. I love her more than my own wife, Clytemnestra, okay? So you can see how coherent all this. And this is amazing to think about it, right? And this is what makes...
Why does he keep saying coherent? How all this is all coherent. What does that mean? What does he mean when he's saying coherent? What is it cohering to? Does he mean like cogent, or like conscious? Like how this is a deep understanding of the complexity of someone's awareness of social, like this, the political and social ramifications of actions. Like, Is that what he means? Like, I'm trying to figure out what
Agamemnon
he means.
a real character to us, all right? But the other thing is that Achilles behaves the same way, okay? He is alive in the scene. He is listening to Agamemnon, and his response is this: why are you stealing from me what is rightfully mine? Agamemnon, I came to Troy not because I hate the Trojans. I have nothing against the Trojans. I came to Troy because you ordered me to come to Troy. And so I'm risking my life for you. You gain most of the treasure. You gain most of the profit from this war. I take a little bit, and now you're stealing that little bit from me as well, okay? So why is Achilles saying this? Achilles is saying this as response to Agamemnon, but he's also saying this in order to win sympathy from the others as well. Right? And he's also doing this because he's conscious of who he is. Okay? They're trying, it's a battle of worldviews. Okay? Worldview.
Again, like he keeps saying these things like he's conscious of who he is. How so? What does that mean? What do you mean he's conscious of himself and who he is?
I have nothing against the Trojans. I came to Troy because you ordered me to come to Troy. And so I'm risking my life for you. You gain most of the treasure. You gain most of the profit.
Also, notice how there's no deep analysis on the rhetoric or understanding of this, of the ideology at battle here, of the different perspectives. Like Agamemnon is trying to is adopting the aggrieved status. He's adopting this, and he feels that this can appeal to them because that, like, he did that a little bit here, but like now he's not. It's so sloppy. It's weird. And again, he keeps coming back to this consciousness thing, and I'm just like, dude, you got to drop this. I don't know what the fuck you're trying to bring on with this, but it's terrible.
Profit from this war. I take a little bit, and now you're stealing that little bit from me as well, okay? So why is Achilles saying this? Achilles is saying this as response to Agamemnon, but he's also saying this in order to win sympathy from the others as well, right? And he's also doing this because he's conscious of who he is, okay? They're trying, it's a battle of worldviews. Okay, worldview. What they're really trying to do is, through their speeches, they're trying to control reality.
This is so weird. Like he keeps saying things like worldview. It's a battle of worldviews. That's not a worldview. It's a battle of two identities, or two perspectives, and two people battling over with their own pride. Worldview is a terrible word to use here because it implies many things and also does not imply a lot of things. And then he's now saying like, oh, they're trying to change reality. No, they're not trying to change reality. They are trying to change the perception people have of themselves, or to maintain control over their social identity. Now, if you want to call that reality, I suppose you could, but you would need to specify that's what you mean when you say reality. This is very weird. Very weird.
Okay? Through their speeches, they're trying to impose the reality on others. And that's why this is such a emotional, violent scene between the two. Okay? And then what happens, which is even more amazing, is that Agamemnon hears Achilles speak, and then what he does is that he responds to Achilles using his own memory and experience, okay? And what he says to Achilles is, Achilles, you say that you came here to fight for me, but we all know that you are vain. You're a narcissist. You're an asshole. You came here to win glory for yourself. You're just using me as an excuse, as a pretext, in order to win glory on the shores of Troy. That's why you really came. So don't give me this crap about you making all these sacrifices for me. You can't make sacrifices for others because you're a selfish asshole. Okay? And then Achilles' response is that, fine, if you do that, then I won't fight for you anymore. So you can see how real this is. Okay, and again, what's amazing.
What does he mean by how real this is? Like, is he trying to like how it's realistic and relatable? Like, is he talking about how it's like it is like it is call and response, and that the actions of each individual are being responded to in a clear and developing manner? Like, what is he actually trying to fucking do here? Like, again, like it sounds fun, but it is nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Is that this all comes in the mind of one person, Homer, the poet.
Okay, so that's another small. This is a nerd problem, but the theory that Homer developed this all on his own is somewhat questionable. So the reason why I'm going to say this is that there's been a fair amount of scholarship that has investigated this to some degree, and the idea that Homer wrote all of this by himself is a little bit suspect. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't write a lot of it. What we're talking about here is that Homer probably, the things that they'll say is that Homer probably existed. It's almost certain he existed. So Homer probably existed. High likelihood of that. And that Homer was involved in the writing of this. Again, very likely. Things that we have the issue of now, though, is that the Iliad, hold on, I have to find the right canteen. Where's the other one? I have two. Don't I have two? I thought I always carried two. Maybe I only have one on me now.
Filling up the tank.
And we should have this ready to eat. I have fucking too much shit in my goddamn inventory. I need to dump some crap. It's pissing me off. Pick that up. What does this need? Crude rope and clover leaf. Alright, fine. Just full of bullshit right now. Anyway, the oral tradition, and again, this is an oral tradition poem, is going to emphasize pretty strongly again, the creative aspect, in the sense that you're going to have people ad-lib, for lack of a better word.
Didn't even break a sweat.
So you're going to have ad-lib stuff. You're going to have people who are going to be repeating these lines, these dialogue, all that kind of stuff over and over and over again. And they're doing this because, you know, it's the tradition, blah, blah, blah. And it is important to understand that you're probably going to, especially with that, and the idea that, again, people weren't treating the story as 100% sacred. You cannot make any changes, whatever. You would make changes to this. You would make small adjustments to it. You would make small little adjustments and kind of play around with it for meter and rhyme enough so that you could make the argument that it's not entirely, you know, Homer on his own. Now, again, It's not saying that Homer didn't do a lot. Homer didn't, Homer did do a lot of it, no doubt. But it's just such a, again, he's falling into this,
Need salt and chili oil.
this desperate, strongman kind of focus. I just don't think, what are you doing? I don't know, I just find it very weird. I find it, again, unhelpful in the extreme, if not downright, kind of deceptive here. I kind of need to look up how to find this fucking, this chip here. What is it? Optical disc D? Alright. Hold on. Anyway, but it's like, okay, it came from this one mind, Homer. It's like, okay, you should bring up the fact, like, it's not super important, but you should probably bring up the fact that this is not all of Homer. You just simply should. It's important to do. But let's keep listening. Let's listen.
Okay, so imagine this where, as I'm speaking to you, I'm able to mentally lift off and observe the entire class, where not only am I hearing myself speak, okay, and I'm measuring and observing the effect of my words, but I'm also able to go into your mind one by one and think about how my words are changing your reality.
Oh, wow. What the fuck was that? Okay. One, why is he again, this is just this weird speech. And again, this may be more of a personal thing. But I'm just going to put it out there. I find that this is a really, really terrible understanding of human consciousness and how we understand the world. And it does this old school, like, man is this perfectly logical master of itself, will to power style understanding of everything. And and you have the capability of disassociating from yourself and entering into this third person perspective to be able to see everything. Because one, you don't see everything. Your very own argument, Jiang's own argument goes against this, because he talks about imagination here. You imagine what the classroom looks like, not what it actually is. If you're doing this in that third person, like you're trying to imagine it from all different perspectives, it is imagination. It is fiction. You're telling yourself, you're trying to understand it based upon experience and all these other things, but you have no realistic understanding or knowledge that this is the way it actually is. It's simply your imagination of what it is. And doubly so when you are, quote unquote, entering other people's minds. You're not entering other people's minds. And I would never, ever in a million years use this phrase, because holy shit, is that some kind of weird mysticism. You might as well start talking about telepathy and bullshit, because you're not entering anybody's mind. And he, even then, his own sentence contradicts it. He enters his own mind and imagines what you are thinking. If I'm entering into your mind, I'm not imagining anything. You might say, oh, you're taking this too literally. No. He's speaking really liberally about something that he should not be speaking so liberally about. And it's important, because he's trying to sell this idea, this weird ideology that's half mysticism, half nonsense, and then like a sprinkling of banal observations. It's just, that's really not a great analysis. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, there's just so much wrong with it that it's kind of throwing me off for a second here. Let me go back and hear that again.
To your mind, one by one, and think about how my words are changing your reality, how they're impacting your emotions, how they're impacting your memory, and think about their impact on you and how they will guide your behavior and actions tomorrow, 10 years.
Again, you're just talking about consciousness with great. Yeah, he wrote about that, and there's again like some of his early stuff. I suppose you could say that's what he's talking about. He's referencing or otherwise bringing up, and this is rather interesting because it's something that he does, that Homer and the people who contributed to this kind of helped emphasize, was this idea of internal thought and whatever, and has developed this. It's not super well developed here, but it is a unique and interesting aspect. But he's talking about it like it's some kind of
words are changing your reality.
Again,
how they're impacting your emotions, how they're impacting your memory, and think about their impact on you and how they will guide your behavior and actions tomorrow, 10 years from now. Okay? But then what's even more amazing is that as this is happening, Nestor, right? Nestor, who is one of the older generals, he comes into the scene and he tries to reconcile Agamemnon and Achilles. Okay? So not only are the two main characters have a life of their own, but the observers have a life of their own as well. So in the Iliad, what's amazing is that not only are the main characters alive, but every single character, whether it's Odysseus, Hector, Priam.
Again, this is, you haven't explained, or he hasn't explained, why this might be unique. Is that, again, the idea that, or what we're dealing with here is why this is such a unique or interesting thing, is that many stories at the time were very allegorical. They were very kind of basic myths. You had characters who didn't really have thoughts and feelings so much as they simply did actions. Like, again, you have all the mythology stuff of like, why is there a wolf spider here? Hold on. I don't know. This is really whimsically silly in a way, because hold on. I'm also going to look up while we're here. I have like a wolf spider thing, just a wolf spider period. Okay, wolf spider. What are you weak to? Spicy, okay. All right, we're gonna kill the wolf spider here, and then we're gonna. Why are you able to do that? God fucking cocksucking. Why do I have to fight a goddamn motherfucking cocksucking son of a bitch? Fuck! Why do I have to fight a motherfucker like that? 20 billion goddamn miles up in the fucking air on it. The tiniest fucking thing humanly possible. Come on.
Let's go.
Alright, we'll get that shit in a second.
Nestor, they're all alive as well, with real emotions and real feelings and real experiences.
Like, again, he's not, this isn't teaching them an understanding of how to design literary characters as people. It's just kind of this weird mixed bag, and he's just kind of jumping way ahead. That's odd. That's odd. Anyway.
Okay? And the reason why, and we know this, is that if this is true, then we're able to look back at how.
What the fuck does that mean? If this is true, what was true? That he wrote this? That this was happening in the fictionalized reality? What do you mean true? What the fuck was true? What was the doubt about not being true?
How this came into being in the past.
How this all came into being in the past. Does he think the fucking Iliad is a historical document? That it actually happened? Just not really. Like, again, no, not like, was there a war on Troy? Possible? Like, yeah, sure, probably. But like, and did some of these figures exist? They might have indeed. Sure, but like, does this conversation happen? Probably fucking not. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is very loose information. So it's why you're trying to talk about, oh, well, if this is true in the past, like, what? Why are you bringing this up? Again, what are you talking about?
And we're also able to make predictions about the future.
Oh, well, hold on.
Then we're able to look back at how this came into being in the past.
We're able to look back into how this came into being in the past. If this is true, how it came into being. You're not creating or predicting past history based upon this. You're just simply taking this as a potential, not even potential thing that happened, just simply a story that people are telling that happened or may not have happened. And how is he getting into the predicting of the future? I know that's a massive thing with him, is that he thinks that, and this is fucking wild, he thinks, one, he is a speculative history kind of proponent, in the sense that he likes to do, God, what is the term for that? There's a specific term for it. Fuck, what is it called? Counterfactual history. There it is. Oh, sorry, I had to think about it for a second. All right. So, like, things like, like, if oftentimes, like, it's like the idea of what ifs is what counterfactual history is like, by making the statement of, like, so and so died and this led to the rise of this. By necessity, you in many ways are predicting and or making the argument that if this person had not died, this would not have happened. And there's some degree of predictive nature of this, and like, this helps with some degree of argumentation, or just being aware that you're making these counterfactual statements. Is that it's more just useful for helping you understand your own analysis and what you can and cannot support with your argumentative framework. But it is an interpretive argumentative framework. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is what happened. Unless you can find more evidence to specifically do this. But yeah. But it's like, you could think of it like this. Okay, you have evidence to suggest hypothesis A. And we should expect further evidence if we find support for hypothesis A. If the evidence does not conform or contradicts the hypothesis, we need to explain the variance and or modify the hypothesis based on what our analysis of the evidence tells us. You can't reproduce historical conditions, but you can make statements about what should be evident in the record if our analysis is correct. So I am making a hypothesis based upon other information, whatever, that this and this happened and this caused this. Great. But that only is useful, or you only give a shit about it if you can actually find evidence within the records of like, okay, I think that X happened. What also happens if X happens? What would be some evidence, some remnants of this, like a fire? You will find, okay, I think a fire happened here. Well, what do you think? What should you find if you find? What should you find after the fact of a fire that would indicate a fire happened? Well, you might find smoke damage. You might find heat damage to specific bricks and or objects in the ground, certain things like suggesting that there was a fire here, assuming it's long enough that you can't just find the other bits of evidence like coal and charcoal and charred bits and remains. You would expect to find these things, so you could make the estimation that a fire happened here. But he's now talking about future here. What the fuck is he talking about the future? None of this makes any goddamn sense. And I know that's a big thing with him, and it's just like, it is the weakest, most insane thing that he does.
And we're also able to make predictions about the future. And all this is coherent. Okay? So based on this,
I would, again, all this, what is coherent? How is it coherent that by simply looking at this and looking at the past, you can predict and understand the future? That doesn't make it coherent. Nothing is coherent there. And even if it is, coherence is not good or bad. Coherence simply means it is coherent. It is aligned with itself. But a bad idea is aligned with itself if all the parts of the bad idea are aligned to the same bad idea. Like, that doesn't, what the, again, mystically fucking stupid here.
we will now know that the major conflict in the Iliad is the one between Agamemnon and Achilles, where they're struggling for control over narrative, where Achilles wants everyone to believe that he is doing everything he can to save the Greeks. He's a hero. And Agamemnon is trying to get everyone to believe that Achilles is just a selfish asshole. Okay? And that's what leads them to behave the way they do, including suicidal behavior. Because remember, as you read, Hector and the Trojans are coming to burn down the ships of the Greeks. Okay? They do that, every single Greek will be killed by the Trojans. And even at this point in time,
again, like, there's so much wildness here that saying, okay, the major conflict of the Iliad is between Achilles and Agamemnon for the control. Like, again, he keeps saying like things like reality and all this stuff, and he just needs to stop saying that, because his analysis, again, it's not, the problem is that his analysis is basic bitch, to put it in a very vulgar manner. It's basic bitch. It's not necessarily wrong or bad. It's just so fucking basic as to not really be something you should, like, it's just not that interesting. This is literally undergrad level understanding of analysis, which isn't necessarily wrong. It's just not particularly useful.
both Agamemnon and Achilles refuses to give up their narrative. Okay? They insist they're right. So that when Odysseus comes to Achilles and begs Achilles, please come back and join us, we'll give you all the money in the world. Agamemnon has promised his daughter to you. We'll give you all of Troy after we conquer Troy. And Achilles says, no, 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 no. I want Agamemnon to come and apologize. If he's not willing to come and apologize to me, then screw all of you. Okay? So you can see how,
again, that's fine, but like, it's not, like, I don't know what he's trying to go for here as far as developing an understanding for his students or you or the reader or anyone else. Like, what are you going for here? How the hell do I get back up to where I was? damn it. Did I somehow take a wrong turn and end up in just clusterfuck hill? Also, why is it always fucking dark everywhere I goddamn go? I swear to God, I literally slept to make it not dark. Come on, get past, get past. I'm trying to find a place where he can't get to me. And I'm struggling. Should have got my bag while I was over there. Yeah, this is wacky shit.
Then screw all of you. Okay.
Like, that's not necessarily wrong, but he keeps going from, again, literary analysis to somehow this literary analysis is, like, real or something. Like, he keeps whimsically going between shit.
Okay? So you can see how human and how real this is, and this is important.
Why? Like, I'm willing to let this one slide a little bit, but it keeps adding up to, you just keep like, oh, it's very real and human. How? Explain the fact that it's human, because you have people doing things that are irrational and or that are harmful to themselves in the long run because they are prideful and willing to keep doing this. Like, just throw out a sentence like that. One or two sentences will help to solidify what exactly is happening here that is human.
For us, because now we're able to step back and observe ourselves as well as others. We have greater imagination, we have greater empathy, we have greater curiosity. Okay? And that's the power of a great book. And this is how the Iliad created the greatest civilization on Earth in history, the Greek civilization. Okay? All right.
Oh,
so
God,
any questions before I move
fanboys
on about this? Okay, now what I want to discuss is, okay, how did Homer do this? Because this is a great mystery that has
Why are you still on my ass, you motherfucker? Hold
centuries.
on. Does my motherfucking...
know the Iliad...
Shut the fuck up, you fucking retard, Jiang. God damn, you're a fucking idiot. How the fuck did Homer do this? All right. I don't know if I can actually play this game and watch this video at the same time. I can't multitask like that. It ain't in my especially if I'm going to be fighting a bullshit fucking opponent like a goddamn wolf spider, because they're fucking bullshit. And also, can I just not be fucking at night? Please? Jesus Christ, every fucking time it's at fucking night. All right, no, we're done. We're done. We're super quitting. Move this guy. Nope.
How did Homer do this? Because it's a civilization. Okay? Civilization of a great book. And this is how the Iliad created the greatest civilization on Earth.
Okay, so again, greatest civilization on Earth. No, not really. Like, it's a powerful and influential nation, but again, this whole like, oh, this Greek civilization, this is another one of those, it's like that same kind of weird masturbatorial fucking wankery material obsession like Musk has with like Roman shit. Oh, all, you know, this is back when men were men and women were women and we were the greatest thing, and we've degraded since then because nobody reads these great books anymore, this Iliad and blah blah blah. It's just like, fuck off, dude. It's such a tired and stupid fucking perspective. Honestly, really tired and stupid.
In history, the Greek civilization. Okay? All right. So any questions before?
And again, it is really arguable. I mean, I would make some arguments that, again, the greatest civilization on Earth, or one of the greatest ones, because again, just trying, it's the greatest one. Again, that's another thing that I've noticed in his videos is he, like I said, he goes into this great man theory, this great singular things. Everything's just greatest, the greatest this was the greatest thing that was ever done. This was the best thing ever done. It's like this, that kind of narrative is just, it doesn't work in academia, because academia is smart enough to know that, like, that's such a nonsensical statement. It is a statement that cannot be backed up to any degree whatsoever. It simply can't be, because this is such a qualitative, such a subjective analysis that there's no way to really understand it. And it's just kind of this weird wankery, this self-congratulatory, this is the greatest nation. I would, again, argue, when you think about it, the Chinese civilization, ancient China, for like millennia, was a pretty goddamn strong, and again, they have revolutions, but honestly, God, it's an amazingly strong civilization when you think about it, and remarkably stable. Again, stability being a subjective thing. But again, that's maybe a personal critique here, but it just seems, again, silly.
I move on about this. Okay,
now here's the next thing I would say is, you know how this is performative?
Others. We have greater imagination, we have greater empathy, we have greater curiosity.
At no point in time does he ever look like he's looking at somebody or responding to somebody or anything at all. Like, look at his eye line and his kind of facial behavior.
Of a great book. And this is how the Iliad created the greatest.
Like, he looks around, but he looks around in this very vague kind of manner. Now, again, I sometimes could almost do this because I'm lecturing and I'm kind of talking the whole thing. But again, I am dancing between eye lines and of various people, of multiple people, of people in the classroom. They're all sitting down. His eye line oftentimes also isn't matching up for somebody who's like looking down at somebody.
Greatest civilization on Earth in history, the Greek civilization. Okay? All right.
Like, especially when he's looking like straight down the middle of what you might imagine the classroom is, that motherfucker ain't looking at anybody. He's looking way too high, and he's looking straight down the center where, like, look, the center aisle's probably empty. And if it doesn't have a center aisle, what are you staring at? The back of the classroom? Just like, why? And it's like, are there any questions here? Again, there's never any questions.
On Earth, in history, the Greek civilization. Okay? All right. So any questions before I move on about this? Okay, now
and again, that was like a half-second pause. That was not long enough to actually receive any questions at all. There's no eye movement. There's no checking, no pointing, no nothing. Oh, we're all good? Good? Okay, good. All right, let's go on. None of that. Again, this is just a performance.
What I want to discuss is, okay, how did Homer do this? Because this is a great mystery that has confused scholars for centuries.
What? How did Homer develop this idea of an internal dialogue or a consistent character thing? How did he develop this? Has been a mystery. No, it's not really a mystery. Like, the question of how he did this, how he developed this, is not a particularly useful one, because one, it's an impossible question to kind of answer because you can't read his mind or see his mind. And the next thing is that it's not like he was the only one who was doing this. Like, you see the developments of this change from very static placeholder style characters who are simply archetypes, and even then just like one-dimensional archetypes, to more robust, what we might consider robust, multifaceted character things. You see this developing and falling in and out of favor in genre fiction or writing and fiction stuff like this, many times across many different cultures over the many centuries. So this, like, how did he develop this? Like, it's the same way all of them do, is just because it is entertaining.
History that has confused scholars for centuries.
And it's not confusing them at all. Like, there's no confusion on this. Like, again, many people have developed theories, and it's not really confusing. It's just, it's not 100% known. I suppose you could say that if you wanted to think about this as a known unknown variable. But again, this idea that we have a pretty strong understanding about the idea of the oral tradition and its development, and many theories have come out that, you know, this might have helped, again, elaborate on this, because each individual person who might be speaking this story and telling this, they may want to emphasize different characters. They may associate with different characters because of their actions and their words. So they may add bits and pieces to keep the rhyme going, but add the little things here. Again, develop the character more to explain it. So that there's lots of theories regarding this.
All know the Iliad is one of the greatest books ever composed, but we don't know who Homer is.
Kind like, again, like, it just feels like it's one of the greatest books ever composed. I guess. I don't know. It just feels like a non thing to bring up.
And we don't know how he did this. There are some who speculated that Homer were many people. Okay? So there's confusion as to who Homer is. The Greeks themselves call Homer the teacher, and they consider him the father of the civilization.
No. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not a father of civilization. They might have referred to him as teacher. That sounds somewhat right, but it seems like this, again, he's doing this weird great man prophet kind of theorizing here that is really weak and kind of silly. But more importantly, you don't need to add all this nonsensical kind of lies, like, oh, he's the father of their thing. It's like, no, he's not the father of anything. He's a speaker, and they liked him a lot, and they liked his stories. They found his stories great entertainment and ideals and warnings and great drama, and they gave this great character to the ideas that, you know, the various concepts like pride and honor, duty, blah 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 blah. Like, you could bring up that, again, for the ancient Greeks who are reading ancient Homer, they believed he had existed, and they built up theories and built up a history around him, or suspect around him. But they believed he existed, which is part of the reason why we believe that he probably existed, is because we have no reason to necessarily doubt them, but at the same time, we also know that they didn't know he existed. There was a lot of just speculation on their part, and that's fine. It's not terrible, but it is something to bring up.
So we know that Homer was a real person, but we know almost nothing about him. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is speculate as to how he was able to do all this. Okay?
Oh, this is going to be really bad. I'm preparing myself right here. How was he able to do all of this? So one, you need to set your terms as, one, you're speculating that he was the sole creator of all the things that you have just read, which, again, you haven't proven, and you probably can't, because there is ample evidence to suggest that there has been some influence and, again, editing and additions added to the Iliad over its very, very long existence. But furthermore, this is not useful. Unless you're trying to sell somebody like this, I'm going to tell you how he did this so you can be like Homer. That's not really useful. And it's not going to be it's not going to be accurate.
How was one human mind able to construct an entire universe?
Again, what do you fucking mean? He didn't construct an entire universe. And more importantly, we do this literally all the time. If you want to think about it like that, like, again, Tolkien did far more to imagine a reality than Homer did. Homer thought of, again, people or characters as having an internal idea of themselves and different perspectives. Great. It's useful, but what the fuck are you talking about? Imagining whole realities.
With real people by himself.
There's no, again, a lot of the people aren't necessarily real. Or they're highly fictionalized, and he did this all by himself. Again, this is just
Okay.
nonsense.
All right. So to understand this, let's discuss how identity, how personality, how consciousness is created. Okay?
Why? So I guess we're going to go on to, you're trying to imagine what the personality and identity of Homer was to get an understanding of how he was able to do this, but I'm really not sure about that one.
So basically what happens is that we have experiences. Okay? And these experiences become short-term memory. And then what happens is that our brains will filter these memories into emotions. Okay? That basically you will index your experience.
No. I'm gonna have to go back to, like, again, I haven't looked at any neuroscience stuff in a while. That feels really silly. It's, again, you have like an external experience of some kind, sure, whatever, and your brain processes as it's happening. It's not really in short-term memory. It's more, it's like there for a second, maybe, but it's more an experience happens. Your brain is automatically, as it's actively experiencing the experience, it is referencing through short-term and long-term memory other experiences that match this experience, and it is responding to them, not necessarily consciously. It's more this, I suppose you could think of this as unconscious. It's really fast. And it's responding, or it's categorizing them into feelings first. So it's not really in short-term memory. Not really. Short-term memory is kind of a different area. It's more in the reactive processing the physical things, and then from there you're having the emotions happening. It's not really like the way he seems to do this is experience happens, it's in short-term memory then categorizes it into different emotions. Like, it's not quite that way, because again, short-term memory is more like long-term memory in the way we understand it, at least my understanding, my memory of this, which could be faulty. Hey, memory is faulty. But short-term memory, not really.
This is according to their emotional strength or value. Okay, so happy, sad, angry, whatever, okay?
And again, it's also mixing up that this is also recursive in the sense that your short-term memory of what happened will be influenced by the emotions that you are feeling as the experience is happening. So that's why, like, they're almost happening in dual sequence, and they're informing upon each other. So short-term memory is changing what that experience is understood to be based upon the emotional category or emotional qualities that that experience is eliciting from other sectors of the brain as it is happening. So it's not like, again, this isn't a linear sequence. Again, the way he's thinking about it, I think that's kind of the best way to describe the problem here, is that he's thinking of this in a very linear sequence, whereas it's not quite linear. It is very much happening all at once.
All right. So in other words, something really important for you to understand is that your memories are your emotions.
Kind of. They will have some degree of dictation on the emotion, but I'm willing to let that one pass, but it's a bit worrisome.
Memories that create emotions in you will come into you and help create your identity.
Memories that cause emotion will come into you. What do you mean come into you? They are you. They already in you. Again, this is that another thing to where I feel like he's trying to get this like this. There's this third party, or there's this absolute I, this person, this identity that is somehow separate from all other experiences, knowledge, whatever, that is infected or influenced by things. So again, it's this another weird, I see this a lot with like libertarian and kind of weird conservative ideologies and just kind of odd offshoot mysticism kind of things, to where there's this perfect being of logic and existence that is you, the real you, but it is infected or otherwise imposed, blocked out, filtered through the experiences and emotions that you have that will change it. And it's kind of, it's mostly they sell this idea because it's like this, you can control yourself, you can be master of yourself, and you can adopt this perfectly logical understanding and just kind of step outside of yourself and sculpt your body like you would your mind, and like you would a piece of clay or marble. And it's just like, this is bullshit.
But memories that have no emotions, you will never remember. You'll just throw it out, okay?
Not really true. And more importantly, there's not a lot of memories or things that are never going to not have some emotion attached to them. But like, okay, it's not super wrong, so I'll leave it.
And then together, these memories will create your identity.
Kind of, not really. Even by his own ideology or his own kind of statements, it's not really what it creates your identity. It's your processing of them and the other experiences that then influence on each other. So like, it isn't not I don't know, that's I'll let it slide. But it's, again, he keeps making these leaps. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big, but god damn it, are they just ass backwards weird.
Okay? And different combinations of these memories will create different identities. And the reason why is that different memories are indexed to different locations. Okay?
Different memories will create different identities. Again, he keeps creating his identities. I what he's trying to describe is kind of the different roles or different conscious awareness of self, or different, again, you could call them identities that we adopt in our social existence that we think are not ourselves, or that we project as not not part of ourselves. But again, that's somewhat complicated on that matter. But like, it's there. That's not necessarily wrong. It's just weird.
Is that different memories are indexed to different locations. Okay, so your identity in a school will be different from your identity at home, or your identity when you go to America.
What the fuck? Your identity when you go to America? Like, again, this is just when you go to school. Like, your identity the identity of when you go to school, like, okay, like the identity or the characteristic of like being a student or being a foreigner or being a traveler, like I guess. But again, notice he keeps phrasing this really weird.
Okay? Because you need different identities to navigate the different landscapes. Okay, does that make sense?
Again, it's social landscapes. Not I feel like again he keeps going in between social and reality, and it's just fucking weird.
And together, this will create your worldview. Your worldview is just your identity, who you are, how you perceive the world.
Again, like it did. This is that weird privileging. Like there's an internal me that is all of these things and none of these things. Kind of. And again, I wouldn't call this a worldview. That's not a worldview. Worldview is your perspective on how you see the world, not necessarily how you see yourself or your understanding of yourself within the world. All those things come into a worldview, but a worldview is an active thing. It's a perspective.
World, how you perceive yourself. And this helps you make decisions. This helps you navigate social relationships. And this determines how you behave, okay? Does this make sense, right? Okay. All right. So this is basically the way that we understand how our personality develops. But there's certain problems.
Notice again, now he's saying personality. Okay, what's the difference between a personality and an identity? This is how you know, again, he's just talking out his ass and he's just used to, this is performance art. He has learned the rhetoric that sounds interesting. If you've ever seen, there's this video on YouTube. Maybe I can find it eventually. But it's basically this kind of comedic joke video that's done up like it's from like the 1960s or 70s, where you had those old like explanatory lesson videos where somebody explains how a differential works. And then they have these scientists and these people, and it's this kind of instructional school-like video. Except it's explaining out like this, you know, hyper coagulant dynamo. And basically it's just a bunch of nonsensical engineering and science lingo, like the flux capacitors dynamo coagulates onto the subfields of different quantum layerings, and that allows the differentials of these two things to interact in two different phases. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's nonsensical. This is what he's doing. Except in the case of the funny YouTube video, it was doing this deliberately to like confuse or to like to make you think for a second they're talking about something scientific. But the second you start like really listening, I just, oh wait, no, they're okay. This is a joke. It's satire. They're making a satirical video. He's not doing that. He's not allowing the viewer to understand that. He's just talking out his ass. He's just throwing together things. Again, what's the difference between identity and personality?
With this understanding, okay? The first major problem with this is the sorting mechanism, okay? Basically, why do we respond to different experiences with different emotions? It doesn't make sense. So you have the same experience.
Notice how there's a problem over in here. All right, so the sorting thing is the short-term memory sorts them according to emotions. So shouldn't emotions happen first, in that you are conscious of these things? Then your short-term memory is actively processing, again, at the same time, or post this, is that it's actually processing to understand and categorize these different experiences according to the emotions they seem to be eliciting. His own diagram feels like his own diagram is contradicting what he just said, which again would not happen if what he is saying is somehow fucking sensical.
But you can respond with different emotions. Okay, so you might get a 50 on a test. Some of you will be really sad, but some of you will be like really happy. Like, well, I thought I was gonna get 10%. Now I got 50%, okay? All right, some people are like glass half empty, some people are like glass half full. So that determines how we perceive the world. But the question then is, where does this personality come from? Okay? Why are some people optimistic? Why are some people pessimistic? And people are born like that.
Again, we are just jumping around fucking randomly, and this is where we're getting into this guru, like mental mastery of yourself, kind of. He's now getting into this weird, like meditative kind of woohoo bullshit. That's wacky.
Now, people, and your response could be like, well, it's just genetic because both your parents are optimistic, so you're optimistic. Both your parents are pessimistic. Okay. Now, you think about your parents and ask yourself, does your personality come from your parents? And the answer is, it doesn't. Okay. The answer is that you're actually different from your parents.
Okay, so here's the next thing. Remember how we talked about how Achilles and Agamemnon were aware of how other peoples were perceiving themselves and perceiving their stories, and were actively trying to control it? Wouldn't that also then mean that depending on how people are reacting, they will adopt and change their presentation to maintain order and control or maintain a desired outcome? Would that not then possibly lead into this idea that your personality can develop and or be influenced by other people's personalities and or opinions and emotions because you would like them to adopt a particular emotion or whatever in regards to you and your actions in a specific scenario? So your parents do have a pretty heavily, and again, right there, he literally said your parents do not influence your identity. Now, again, he put it in the most dumbass, like, straw man, like, genetically they don't do that, but it's like, yeah, maybe, possibly, probably, but they do it non-genetically.
And ask yourself, does your personality come from your parents? And the answer is, it doesn't, okay? The answer is that you're actually different from your parents. I have 3 kids. I know this because all 3 of my kids are different from both my wife and myself. Okay, so the question is, where does this personality come from? That's the question number 1. We don't know the answer.
Again, we absolutely do have many incredibly well-developed understanding and answers to this question. Most of it has to do with, again, you're talking about like this weird nature versus nurture divide, but that divide is nonsensical and not really taken seriously in academia anymore because they don't see it as a divide. That's like, no, it's more of a compatibilist scenario. And when it comes to your personality, again, there may be some degree of early degree of like pre-programming or predilection towards specific things depending on the influence and potential genetic blah 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 bullshit happens in utero that may develop some leanings towards certain personality traits or certain things early on. But most of it, people seem to think, is like, most of this comes from, again, the chaos of processing and the complexity of processing and various emotions that happen during early childhood as that develops. So again, just because this thing causes happiness, it may cause happiness, but because there is no predictability on this thing, somebody may grow up hating clowns even though other people may like clowns, because at that particular moment when the clown came out, because of, who knows, air temperature, bad nap, who knows, you just pooped your pants or whatever, the child was in a different state of mind to process the information and the emotional things, and it elicited different emotional reactions. So now the child dislikes clowns rather than likes clowns. But that child could very well have liked clowns if that clown had shown up at a different point in time. So this isn't necessarily a mystery. Like, is it objectively, we know objectively what is the absolute fucking material reality of this? Of course not, but it's an immaterial concept. Like, we're talking about an immaterial, or at least as far as we can understand it, somewhat immaterial. It's a concept. This identity, this performance, this consciousness is a conceptual framework. Like, we can't get to a perfect material understanding of a thing that it doesn't really have material, or at least we're trying to, for with very neuroscience and blah blah blah, and we're making progress, but it's not really this impossible mystery.
Question number 2, which is more problematic, is, okay, we know how this process works, but where are the memories stored inside the brain?
They're all over, though there are certainly locations that are more highly stored than others. Again, what is it like? It's like the hippocampus or something like that. We know memories are stored in those various areas. Now, where exactly a memory is, it's less of a physical, like there isn't like one little atom in your brain or one little cell that handles this particular memory. It's usually a pattern of things. That's why when you have a memory or something like that, a heat map of your brain kind of is shown that multiple parts of your brain are active at this point. Some of them have to relate to the memory, some of them have to relate to various other aspects of the memory, maybe, but or unrelated to the memory. But it's more of a constellation. It's kind of like where is the this is like asking, where is the royal flush stored, or where are the hands of a playing like a standard 52 card poker deck, where are the hands stored? Well, they're not stored in any one particular place. They're stored in a combination of things. Where are all of the, it's a pattern rather than a singular object.
Right? We know how this works psychologically, but
again, we do know it's not how you literally said here, not at all.
But the question then is, where in the brain does this happen? And the answer is, we don't know.
We kind of do, or we certainly know more than you are letting on. Again, this is mysticism. This is the groundwork for laying the groundwork for a mystical answer. The next thing is I want you to remember, what the fuck is this thing? It's supposed to be talking about great books. What the fuck are we doing here? Like, we're off on a random ass tangent about identity, and nobody's learning any real in-depth understanding about the Iliad and what makes it great. Instead, we're off on this random fucking tangent.
We don't know. We know where in the brain breathing happens. We know in the brain where language acquisition happens, but we don't know in the brain where memories are formed and stored and accessed. We don't know. That's really weird, guys. Okay? All right, so that's point number 2.
So again, I cannot help but emphasize this multiple times. He's not speaking to a crowd. There is no classroom there. It's super weird that he's doing this, but he's just gonna keep doing it.
Storage of memories. Okay. Okay. And then question number 3 is empathy.
All right, I'm kind of getting bored with this guy. I want to see if we can speed this up a little bit. One second here. I also want to take a look at this. 1 second. Want to do something here real quick. There we are. All right, we're going to speed this up because, again, he's terrible. It's very annoying. And we'll do that, and we're going to speed this up just a bit. We'll do 1.5.
Okay, or theory of mind.
Why is it all the way over there? What the fuck? God damn it. Every fucking time. Get over here, weirdo.
This is a great theory, but it doesn't really help us explain how empathy works, right? It doesn't really help us understand how we're able to perceive the emotions of others.
Again, how the what? Like, this doesn't help us understand. Like, I guess, but at the same time, why was there an expectation of this? Like, again, he just jumps from one fucking topic to the other with almost no goddamn care for what the fuck he's doing.
Now you can say, well, it's because we have these different identities, and so we just look at our own identity. But that doesn't really help us understand what's going on, okay?
Why doesn't that? Why doesn't that help us understand what's going on? Why doesn't it help us that we are simply imagining what we would do if we were in the other person's position, and we're adopting an identity of ourselves that we think matches onto the identity of them because we don't have access to their identity? Why wouldn't that make sense? Why wouldn't that be a possible explanation?
So these three major problems created by modern psychology. Okay, the first is, where does our personality come from? Because our personality are a filter, right? Our personality determines.
Is this okay, so yeah, this is why he's doing this. This is another weird attack on psychology, because psychology must be wrong. Okay, yeah, figures.
How we perceive the world emotionally. Second problem is, where does this all happen inside the brain? We don't know. And the third.
Again, that's not a problem with psychology necessarily. That's a thing that, again, psychology doesn't study that because that's not what psychology studies. That's neuroscience. So that's a problem for neuroscience. And again, neuroscience is working on it and has developed many things.
Problem is empathy. Okay? How are we able to perceive into the emotions of others?
But we're not perceiving into the emotions of others. Again, we're not perceiving into anything. We are perceiving what they are displaying. You're not seeing into anything. That is an assumption you are making without any proof that they are inside somebody else's brain. Unless you were trying to somehow say that that's what Homer was doing. But again, Homer is not doing that because Homer is writing this after the fact. Even if you want to believe that all of these things happened, he's trying to imagine what was happening. Again, like, his information is too limited for this to happen, and he's not in the room with them. So what the fuck are you talking about? None of this makes any goddamn sense.
All right? Okay. And we don't know. So I'm going to propose a theory to you today, okay? Which goes back to.
Again, you're not going to propose a theory. You're going to propose a hypothesis at best. And it sounds like it's going to be a rather terrible one.
We don't know. So I'm going to propose a theory to you today, okay? Which goes back to last class. Okay, imagine this. Imagine that we are composed essentially of two selves, okay? Two selves. There is the body, and the body comes materially, right? Okay, we know that. We know that through evolution. But then our consciousness comes from our interactions with the universe, okay? So our brain, it's not a storage facility, it's an antenna for.
So he's doing some kind of mind-body duality thing here to where the mind is not a part of the body, which again is not necessarily, it's not really a solved problem, but it's also not a problem that can probably be solved. So he's just trying to think that. The next thing is like it's an antenna. That's again, even the people who are doing this mind body thing, where the mind is separate, there's no reason to assume that the mind is at all interactive with anything else in some kind of collective thing. Like it's and more importantly, if your mind is a receiver, like then it is, then what is what is your personality? Because if you're or your mind, because if your mind is simply a receiver doesn't do anything. A receiver simply receives a signal and transfers it to another thing. So what's the other thing that it's being transferred to? Is there a third personality, a third person?
The vibrations of the universe, okay? And we call this
Vibrations of the universe. Again, what the fuck are that? What the fuck does that mean?
consciousness.
So consciousness is what? Consciousness is the second part, the second part of you that is the antenna that receives the vibrations of the universe. Right. Okay.
And remember, last class we discussed how this consciousness, the universe is conscious, right? And there are infinite dimensions.
The universe is conscious? We've proven that? We know that? What do you mean the universe is conscious?
How this consciousness, the universe is conscious, right? And there are infinite dimensions to this consciousness.
What is it? What do you mean by dimensions? What do you mean infinite dimensions of consciousness?
And this is where our memories are stored. So a very simple analogy is think about the internet, right? You have a computer, you have a laptop, and some memory is stored on the laptop, but most of it is actually stored in the cloud.
One, no, only if you want it to be stored in the cloud. That's a choice. And two, it's not stored in the cloud. Now, I know people are going to say, hold on, I've saved something in the cloud. No. You saved it to the cloud, but the cloud is literally just another physical, like there is a fucking server that holds the cloud. So you're not, again, you're just simply saving it. When you're saving it to the cloud, you're simply saving it to another hard drive, essentially, in a way. Like, again, maybe my understanding of the cloud is wrong and it's slightly different, but in many ways, you're still just saving it to another physical location. Because it's never outside of, it's not saved in, even if you want to think about it in the sense of like, oh, it's like energy signature or something like that. Something has to be constantly signaling out or putting out that energy signature for that energy signature to exist, which means that energy signature is originating and in many ways stored in another fucking location. The cloud is on servers. Big fucking servers.
And how the computer works is by interacting with the internet, your computer becomes more conscious. Okay, does that make sense?
No, I'm sorry, your computer becomes more conscious. What the fuck are you talking about? What is your understanding of consciousness? Maybe I need to watch the very first one because I decided to pick a lecture where he's looking at a specific thing rather than just the introductory lecture, but maybe I need to go back to that one. But this is whimsically fucking stupid.
Saving here where you just use the human brain and just assume that everything comes from the human brain, nothing makes sense. But if you assume that the human brain is made...
How? Why does it not make sense? Even if you want to make this argument, why does it not make sense if you're assuming everything comes from the human brain and it's all simply a product of biological process that create a conceptual experience of itself? Why doesn't that work?
Really an antenna to the universal consciousness, it makes a lot more sense.
Universal consciousness? Which, more importantly, which one and what do you mean?
Okay, and not only that, but by imagination, by consciousness, we're able to implant ourselves into the universe, okay? And different emotions implant themselves in different wavelengths.
Again, I'm sorry. to anybody who believes in this stuff, which I'm sure there's plenty of dude bros out there that absolutely love this, think it's super high minded or whatever, and then they go and watch some Ben Shapiro or Sam Harris, and they go, "Oh my God, we're such intellectual dark web stuff," and they watch their Jordan Petersons and their Eric Weinsteins and their Brett Weinsteins. Here's my question here, or here's my statement. This is literally fucking astrology, crystals, healing magic bullshit for you dudes. For you people who believe in this crap, who want to believe that there's some intellectual dark horse or whatever, this is how I know. This is what I think of. Is every time I hear people start rambling about this and saying this kind of crap, like that, what fucking Jiang is saying in here, it's just psychological woohoo bullshit. It's just astrology. It's just tarot cards. It's the same level of crap.
Dimensions. Okay, does that make sense? So the combination of your emotions now leads to a unique imprint in the universe. Okay? And
you keep saying that, okay? Like, nobody gets this. Nobody, and even if you did, again, let's just say this is all true. He is explaining so much so fast that it's so radically non-fucking sensical and doesn't immediately tie to stuff. How in the hell would a student follow this? An undergrad student couldn't follow this. Not intellectually. They would just be writing down stuff and going, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. I'm just going to repeat this back on the test.
And different personalities will obviously have the same imprint in the universe. And we call this archetypes.
Different personalities will have the same imprint, obviously. Does he mean same personalities, or like they'll have the same imprint, but if they're different, how do they have the same imprint? And now he's going to bring up archetypes. But okay, so like he seems to be doing some weird Jungian stuff, like Carl Jung, where he's talking about archetypes and shit like that, and like some kind of collective unconsciousness or collective universal unconsciousness. But Jung did not argue that archetypes are literal mystical like frequencies or things that are in a cosmos or whatever. Like his archetypes are less are not that at all. It's more repeated patterns. Like his archetypes could absolutely have biological or some kind of material reality to them, in the sense that he was talking more like he didn't want to talk about the biological aspect of it at all. He was just more talking about this as like an observed phenomenon, or his idea, his conception of his observed phenomenon. But there's nothing to say that this is not, that this couldn't be biologically inspired, in the sense that, you know, you have people who have hair that is much the same color and style as other previous past generations. You could very well have this as certain biological or psychological or some kind of factors can recreate similar patterns or archetypical things that people align to. And more importantly, Carl Jung oftentimes would think about these archetypes, whether they are emergent from something or from themselves or not. The idea of them, and that we often operate with this idea that there are, even if we don't have the word for it, archetypes, we operate in the sense that there are archetypical or normative or typical like understandings and behaviors and things and responses, call and response. When somebody does X, Y happens. Something like that.
Archetypes. This is from Carl Jung, who is a Swiss psychologist. Okay.
So again, this is really, really bad Jungian analysis. Again, I didn't think to study and look up Jungian stuff before watching this, because I didn't know he was going to be bringing up 1.5 billion different goddamn things. But that's terrible. That's terrible Jungian analysis and Jungian stuff. Again, Carl Jung would not agree with what he's saying here. No person who studies Jungian psychology or archetypical stuff would agree with him at all.
Carl Jung. The word he uses is archetypes. They're different personalities, and they are accessing the same parts of the universe, and so they behave the same. That's why certain people look alike.
they're accessing the same part of the universe. Again, no, that's not what Carl Jung meant when he said universal unconsciousness, or when he was talking about this. He was, again, this is all purely conceptual. He's not saying like this actually is a thing, like some spiritual world. He was more, again, thinking about the this is how we process things. This is the imaginative framework we create or process to create, to process and understand things, to create some kind of semblance of order. We establish archetypes, or we imagine there are archetypes to things, and then we act and behave in those kind of manners. We're not getting this on wavelengths. We're not receiving this from some third party separate location. That's just not at all what Jung is talking about.
Okay? If you're an evil person, same.
Also,
and they are accessing the same parts of the universe, and so they behave the same. That's why certain people look alike.
why people look alike. Again, what the fuck are you saying? You're just throwing things out there. Do you mean that they look alike personality wise? Because that's the only thing I could possibly see this. But why would you say that? Why people act similar to each other would be a way to say this. Look alike? What, you're talking about like biologically? What the fuck are you talking about?
Okay? If you're an evil person, you have a certain look to your face, right?
Oh, sweet Jesus, he is doing that. I thought he was just joking. I thought he just used a bad word. He literally is doing this weird, physiognomy is, I think, the word for it. To where, like, your psychology determines your morphology, your physical status. So an evil person is going to look and have an evil eyes and evil nose. That is straight up fucking dumbassery. That is insanely stupid. That is one of the most consistently and earliestly debunked scientific theories that's ever come about. 100%. That is absolute pseudoscience.
If you're a good person, you have a certain look to your face. Okay? If you're clever, you have a certain look. Okay? So archetypes. And so
archetypes. But again, why would you say that? These archetypes aren't physical things. Even by what you were saying, this was a personality, a consciousness thing, a non-material source, archetypical thing that makes your personality. Why the hell are you making the jump that the non-physical thing makes your physicality thing? More importantly, then why do you circle back and say, oh, the physicality, you look evil, hence archetypes? But your archetype was talking about that. Again, he's not... If you just listen, even if you don't understand what he's saying, even if you don't think about it, even if you believe what he's saying as true, he's contradicting himself.
What's happening is that what Homer is doing is that he's opened his mind to the universe, and therefore he's able to access all archetypes. Okay? We all
Just no, please no.
all do this through empathy, but Homer's able to do this at a greater level than everyone else.
Then who? But people at his time period? No. I can't just no, but like no, that's not true. You have others in the same time period or similar skill who have displayed similar aspects, like, and again, you haven't proven that he's somehow unique amongst them. You just simply said he's a genius and everyone walks away with it.
Okay? And then he's able to transplant these archetypes into the world of the Iliad. And that's how he's able to create what he does. A word we have for these people are prophets, right? What are prophets?
What? I'm sorry. Every single time, like, maybe this must be the draw, is because no matter what, you can never guess where he's going to go, and it's just so fascinating. Oh, it's so fascinating how he's drawing these crazy connections like this. Yeah, but like anybody can do this. Like literally anybody can do this. All you just got to do is just start talking bullshit and start tying things together, because you don't have to actually tie them together. You literally just bring in one thing and then you go, and so that's why X, and this is why Z, and this is why B, and this is why W. It's like this. Well, what you're just jumping around. What the fuck are you connecting here?
prophets. Prophets are those who bring the truth of the universe onto our world and construct it in a language that allows us to access this truth eternally. Okay? So in this time in history, poets are prophets, are teachers. These are the same function, okay? Where you're accessing the truth of the universe and you're spreading this truth through words that enable the construction of civilization.
And see, notice this is where his ego actually is coming in here, is that he imagines himself a prophet, and that this is what he does, is that he takes the accesses the universe, and this is why he can't explain these things out, because you're trying to look for some kind of like scientific thing or whatever, but that's not what this is. This is me accessing something that is only accessible to the genius and the smarty smarts like me. And it's so smart and so great that it can't ever conform to anything that you would think, because everything you're trying to think of, or that the sciences and that the academics are talking about, they're all doing it just in the material world. I'm accessing the special world by my book.
Okay? So, and we think this is true. Why? Because think about how amazing it is that the Iliad was written 2,500 years ago, okay? It was written 2,500 years ago by this guy, Homer, living in the Mediterranean, the Aegean, right? Different culture, different time, but the Iliad is able to speak directly to you as a Chinese person.
Okay, so again, what he seems to be missing is there's another answer. The answer is that and this is where reader response analysis comes in, and this is why reader response kind of theory of, again, genre analysis comes into play, and how it develops is that could be true, or it could also be true that meaning is something that is created as we are doing this, or that connection is that we are constantly interpreting and we're reading into things and projecting ourselves and our own values into other works and trying to reconstitute them and recontextualize them into our setting. So it has nothing to do. He's not seeing us and being able to speak to us 2,500 years from the past. Is that no, he's simply, and more importantly, there you could also go into kind of universalist experiences that getting punched in the face 2,500 years ago probably hurt just about as much as it did now. Having somebody steal from you, punch you, kick you, and make fun of you probably hurts your pride and sense of self-worth just as much in the 2,500 years ago as it does today. Because the actions themselves are material consistent, and our responses to them, well, unless we've massively changed psychologically, are going to be relatively the same. You don't need this mysticism.
Living in China in the 21st century. Not only that, but you're able to imagine Achilles as yourself. So,
but you are able to do that. Unless you're someone who's saying that I am powerless, which again, this is why it's not consistent, that at the one side, they want you to feel both powerful, or to imagine them as powerful as him, the teacher, the prophet, everything is powerful. But then also you are not. It's very cult-like behavior to where you're independent, but you're also dependent upon me. But you're independent from the world, but you need me. It's fucking weird.
If we assume that the universe is conscious and it is infinite and eternal...
Boy, we're having to assume a whole shitload of things, aren't we? Notice how he keeps saying that. If we assume this to be true, if we assume that, okay, what it makes it true?
And there are archetypes that exist within this universe that Homer is able to draw on, then that makes sense now, okay? This is both.
Yes, if you assume all of these wild assumptions that I've already previously stated, and if you just assume them to be true, and then you assume the conclusion that I said comes from these things, even though I didn't explain why and how this should come from this, then this must be true. There's no connections here. There's no learning. There's no education.
Spaceless and timeless. There's consciousness. All right? Is this clear, you guys? Okay.
No, again, there are no students in here. And if they are, I imagine that they're literally so brainwashed that like they're just writing stuff down because you're a teacher and they're supposed to respect you.
Because if this is not true, then you have to answer the question, how was Homer able to do this? Right?
It's pretty fucking easy to answer how he did it.
How was he able to construct characters like Achilles, Odysseus, Agamemnon that are so real that they feel alive to us? That they're
But they also don't. What happens if I give this to somebody and they say that doesn't feel real or alive? It feels like a cardboard cutout. That mere existence means that, well, okay, somehow that person did not connect with this universal unconscious brainwave thing that's being able to transfer here. So how the hell was this prophet, this absolute person? Are you going to make, oh, well, they're just resistant to it. They're deafening themselves to it. Well, how the fuck are they able to do that if this is literally a core aspect of their being and this is where their personality comes from? They literally can't help but have the antenna to connect with these things. Yet I guarantee you, I could give the Iliad to somebody and they won't see themselves or won't really care or will dismiss Achilles and Agamemnon as non-real characters.
they're so real that we can hear them speak to themselves. So real that they themselves can hear themselves speak to others.
Nonsense. Just nonsense.
Okay? Any questions? Ask a question to make sure you understand this theory, okay?
They're not gonna ask a question. Like, there's nothing here, dude. What the fuck are they supposed to ask a question on?
This is actually a very complex theory.
It's not complex. It's literally nonsensical. Just being vague as shit doesn't mean it's complex. It just means it can't be solved. It can't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like he has one person in there, but I don't know. Like I see more than a few. Maybe he is doing this, and it's just the quietest classroom. But I don't know. I may need to watch more videos or whatever. But this is honestly, two things come to mind. One, this classroom is just simply way too quiet for there to actually be people in here. This sounds like, again, maybe he has a cameraman or he has somebody in there, a sound guy who's going to ask a question because he desperately wants them to ask a question. But if it is a classroom with people in it, then it's just like, yeah, but part of the reason why like I might be so silent is because it's such nonsensical bullshit. It's impossible to follow, not because it's smart, but because it's genuinely stupid.
Just speak.
The quote-unquote prophets. So in this theory, it's actually technically not a prophet because they are not predicting future, right? Because the universe is spaceless or timeless, so that they're actually talking about the truths, right? So they're not making predictions because all of them are already written down in the universe.
Okay. So the word prophet doesn't actually mean someone who predicts the future. Okay. The word prophet actually means someone.
Notice how the kid basically just said something that wasn't like contradictory or whatever. It's just like it's literally just repeating this and
Who speaks the truth. Speaks truth. Okay? Because for most of human history, when you say someone's a prophet and he speaks truth, what you're really saying is that he's speaking the word of God. Right? Because what is truth? Truth is the universe, which is God. So when you speak truth, you're speaking the universe altogether. It is beyond space and beyond time. So when you speak the truth, and what will happen happens.
I'm sorry.
Right?
Like, this is all just woohoo bullshit.
And a lot of this truth is this moral truth where if you do evil unto others, evil will come unto you.
What? How the fuck is that true? More importantly, it's also not true. It's almost definitively not fucking true.
Okay, so so the story of Achilles, right? Where Achilles, he's stuck in a situation where.
Again, this is narratively true, but it's narratively true because we literally create that because we want it to be true in the narrative universe and because it creates a kind of rhyme scheme of things. It creates a sort of circularity. It creates a sense of satisfaction of finality of things. But that just is a construct.
He wants Agamemnon to apologize. The death of, so he's done evil on wedding going on.
I don't know. I'm gonna skip forward ahead, see if I can find something useful. I don't know. I think I'm done with this. This is insane. It's just genuinely, this is so much worse than I ever thought. This is going to be absolutely painful, this little research project I'm working on with this. I don't know. This is nonsense. It's just pure fucking nonsense. Wow. Yeah, wow. I had not watched a full one of his videos before. I'd only seen shorts, and the shorts were really bad, and they really made me think that this was genuinely terrible. But again, a lot of his shorts were more on like weird political, moral philosophy stuff like that, not actually like literature. I thought like, okay, maybe he's an English teacher who's just stepping out of his comfort zone and he's talking out his ass about this shit, and he's trying to use like narratology and shit like that to try to be predictive or to explain the world through narrative. And it's like, all right, he's just talking out his ass. Academics do that sometimes. But even in his field, it's kind of, at best, it's sophomoric bullshit. It's like, okay, yeah, I could see you have a bachelor's in English, because this is like undergrad level at best analysis, and then you just throw in woohoo astrology bullshit, essentially. That's terrible. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and end the stream there. I think, unless I can find something of interest to watch. There was another couple videos that I could watch that I may or may not engage with. But that was genuinely dog shit. Like, that was absolutely embarrassingly bad. I don't even know how you do that without just cringing up and dying a little bit inside, because it was genuinely awful. Anyway, yeah, there's some debates that we could look at. I think we looked a little bit at, I can't remember if we looked a little bit at the Constantine Kissin and the Destiny debate. I know that's up. We could do some reaction to that, but it's genuinely, that's another really embarrassing and awful performance. Kissin is honestly kind of a dunce. I think the problem is that, like, they are deliberately stunting their own intellectual understanding of the world, because they've come to a point where learning anything more or engaging with this topic anymore, actually understanding it more, developing or responding and fixing the obvious problems, like they found errors or whatever, and to fix these errors would cause them to have to make certain conclusions about political and social and cultural things that they have spent a lot of social capital investing in disliking. And they simply can't or won't do that. They won't abandon that. They won't. It's the sunk cost fallacy across the board when it comes to politics and like social and cultural understanding and analysis, that they just can't. They won't abandon them, because they just don't want to feel like, they just don't want to admit they were wrong. But I think we're going to go ahead and end there. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Until next time, and as always, I hope you have a good one.